Okay, we are live, but we're letting it breathe. Oh, we're letting it breathe just for a moment here. Hang tight. And then we'll fire off another episode. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Huddle Up Podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, I'm like the first, if something publishes, I'm the first guy to read it at MHH, or in many cases, I'm the one that edited it. So I have read it before it publishes. I have not cast eyes yet on your article breaking down what Bobby Wagner said about Russell Wilson, right, specifically because I wanted to hear it from you on the show tonight. For people wondering what's going on, why did Bobby Wagner say the Broncos are heading for last place in the AFC West with Russ?
It's KJ Wright, the other former Seahawks KJ Wright linebacker. Yeah, so he said he did an interview with USA Today. I think it was last week. I'm going to just read you the quote verbatim so you can make your own determination, Chad, and everybody else. Wright said, I have the Raiders at number 1, the Chargers at 2. I got the Chiefs finishing 3rd. That's in the AFC West. And that would lead you to deduce that the Broncos are in 4th place out of the postseason entirely and in the AFC West basement for another year. That's what KJ Wright believes. And he goes on to say, you got to look at it from a holistic standpoint. You got to look outside of the quarterbacks, what's on the other side of the ball, what's on defense. I believe the Broncos have some pieces, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to slow down these weapons in this division. It's going to be tight, but only 3 are going to make it. And as I wrote in the article, Chad, this is the 3rd time at least documented publicly someone has put the Broncos in that category, meaning number 4 in the division. They're not as good as Kansas City, not as good as the Raiders, not as good as the Chargers. From an anonymous NFL executive, Bucky Brooks from NFL Network a few weeks ago. It's an ongoing thing, but this KJ Wright smacks of bias, either against the Broncos or against Russell Wilson. Let him hate. That's all I got to say.
I have the Raiders. First of all, this dude loses all credibility.
Right.
With the Raiders at number 1, Chargers at number 2, Chiefs at 3. So there's the full quote. Zach read it off to you verbatim, but there's the full quote. This kind of ties in and dovetails a little bit, Zach, with I don't know what people are smoking in the national media, the national perspective on the Chargers. Like, I understand they have made some pretty impressive additions this offseason, like Khalil Mack. Well, let me get rid of that. No, just go away. All right, now I just have to. McAfee, thank you for doing your job, but you're bothering me.
Norton's better anyway.
PFF, all right, their power rankings just came out, all right, for whatever it's worth. They have the Broncos ranked 7th overall, and you think, okay, well, whatever. It's PFF throwing out off-season content. Okay, fine. Their top 5 teams, all right, in the power rankings, they categorized as quote-unquote true contenders. In order, it went Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Rams, Chiefs, Chargers as true contenders. And then the next category of teams, which was headlined by number 6, Green Bay Packers, number 7, Denver Broncos, were the could be their year teams. All right. And here's what they said real quick, Zach. Denver, this is PFF. Denver catapulted itself into the contenders by trading for Russell Wilson, giving them their first legitimate championship caliber passer since Peyton Manning. Denver now has to craft an offense that gets the most out of Wilson while doing so without running into the same issues that the Seattle Seahawks have. Can Wilson be unleashed to be the best version of himself without eschewing too much of the quick routine passes to make the offense among the league's best? Question mark. What the heck are you talking about, dude? Meanwhile, last thing that I'm serving it back over to you. Here's what they said about the Chargers, justifying top 5, etc. Quote, few teams were as aggressive this offseason as the Chargers, who seem determined to capitalize on the talent they have at quarterback in Justin Herbert. Far from regressing, Herbert's second season built on his stellar rookie campaign, so the Chargers spent a ton of money to surround him with talent. Adding a player like Khalil Mack should improve everything up front, and J.C. Jackson adds to a secondary that has a lot of ball skills as a unit. Drafting Zion Johnson should ensure that the line in front of Herbert remains solid. Close quote. So, Zach, as I serve this over to you, far from regressing, Herbert's second season built on his stellar rookie campaign, */caveat, but it availed the Chargers not. This dude has yet to win anything. What are we talking about here? They haven't even gotten to the playoffs with Herbert, and they're ranking him top 5?
And is Khalil Mack catching passes for Herbert? They make the argument of helping him out, but he plays defense. That blurb about the Broncos told me absolutely nothing. If I was even an unbiased reader, if I was a general fan and I wasn't covering the Broncos, I learned nothing about what he said about Russell Wilson. They have to craft an offense and he has to be better than he was in Seattle toward the end. Really? No crap. I didn't know that. But let me tell you something I hate. And I know you hate it too. A lot of people hate it. There's like this cool kids club in the national media. And most of the blue check marks, and we have them too, so we can't hate on them too much, Chad, but we're not like that. They get an idea or a fad and they just keep, I don't know how else to say it. I'm going to just say it, circle jerking around it. And that topic is Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Peter King ranking the Chargers number 2. The second best team in the NFL. Then you have PFF. Not like I care what PFF has to say anyway. They've proven to be biased against the Broncos as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. They can say what they want now on May 30th. I care about September 30th, and I think the Broncos will prove themselves then by that point, and they can't say anything anymore.
It's not going to come out in the wash. The Duchess with a Michaela bomb from the top rope. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. Man, love it. Die hard. Passionate, outgoing, supportive member of our community, MHH Mount Rushmore, the Duchess. Love you, Michaela. She says, anyone saying Raiders will be number 1 loses all credibility with me. Worry where your team will end, silly. Yes, I know. That's the thing. It's like, really? I mean, we're talking about the Raiders, which I know the Raiders made the playoffs last year with a special teams coach as interim head coach, Zach. Derek Carr's no joke. He's got some talent. Devontae Adams coming to town. All that. Don't forget about Josh McDaniels. Hey, there was a time, Zach, everyone in the league thought Josh McDaniels was the next thing. And then he went and proved everybody wrong by completely torpedoing in a almost, if you weren't in Denver or didn't care about the Broncos, comedic fashion, the way he almost single-handedly dismantled the Denver Broncos. And now that's your number 1 team in the AFC West, KJ Wright. Give me a break.
First of all, Michaela, this was a Michaela bomb, but it was a Febreze bomb to get the stink of these prognostications out of the room. I just can't believe what I'm reading nowadays. And KJ Wright, I think he's a free agent for a reason because his football IQ might not be that smart. I don't know why he's so high on the Raiders. I don't see them being number 1 in the West. I don't know why teams or people are so high on the Chargers. I don't think they're number 2 in the NFL, but it doesn't matter. Let them talk all they want. Let them hate all they want. People are acting like Devontae Adams is going to solve all their problems. Well, it's a big leap going from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr. And I'm a Derek Carr fan, but he's nowhere near the level of Aaron Rodgers. They have other mouths to feed on offense. You mentioned McDaniels. There's Tom McMahon there. They have a lot to prove as well, that coaching staff and those players, and putting it all together. And for a team that hasn't won a postseason game in 2 decades, I'm not too worried.
Michaela, while you're here is a real-time update on the top 5 rankings on Super Chat this month. There's tonight, there's tomorrow. That's all that's left to get into the top 5. Michaela is currently number 2, bolstering her position. Ethan at number 1, Michael Ronquillo at 3, Pobby the Princess at 4, and Sam Bam has leapfrogged Tanner into the top 5. We have a new order in the top 5. So congrats and props to Sam Bam. And then just a few of the names outside the top 5, Tanner, D-Dub, Shane, Mark the God King, Naj, Paul, etc. So much love. Appreciate each and every one of you that chip in and help support what we do here at Mile High Huddle on Super Chat. And Michaela, you're right there at the front. So much love and respect, my friend. Look, I am mystified. People are probably going, why? Turn the page. Let's talk Broncos. But I just can't understand people gushing and crowning and the hype of the Chargers. Like the Raiders, whatever, dude. Like at least the Raiders made the playoffs last year. At least the Raiders, they were a semi-threat to do something crazy in the playoffs. The Chargers, I'm still not convinced. Brandon Staley, who, let me remind everybody, is 3 years removed from being a position coach under Vic Fangio, who had 2 years of NFL experience. That's the team that's the top 5. I mean, and my buddy Pat Burns, shout out to you, my dog. If you're listening to this, I love you. But Chargers, I'm doubting Thomas always when it comes to the Chargers. I will believe it when I see it.
you could argue the head coach, Brandon Staley, was the reason why they didn't get to the postseason last year with this 4th down calls, the game against the Raiders in the season finale. When you're, in that sense, out-coached by an interim special teams coordinator in Rich Bisaccia, then maybe you're not the guy. Maybe you shouldn't be called the number 2 team in the NFL. And to your criticism that people are maybe saying, why aren't you talking Broncos? Well, we are, because when you make the case that the Raiders are number 1 and the Chargers are number 2 in the NFL, that's disrespecting the Broncos by omission. And they're not the 4th best team in the West, and they're going to prove that this season. So that's what I'm saying. I know it's annoying. We have to talk about it, write about it, cover it. But come September, all of it will change. All their tunes will change. And we have the receipts now. That's the great thing about writing these stories and covering these stories. We can go back and prove that Nick Wright's wrong, which makes perfect sense considering his name. The KJ Wright's wrong. And we will. That's the fun part.
Big T, Travis in the house. It's always great to see you, my friend. Thank you for being you and for the support and contributing to the conversation. He says, good evening, Chad, Zach, Scott, Broncos country, and happy Memorial Day, which, yes, happy Memorial Day to all the veterans.
Yes.
And to hats off to the victorious dead. Much love and respect. I see us better than the Raiders and the Chiefs, but can't count the reigning division champs out. With the Chargers, I see Denver battling for the division. So he sees really it's going to come down to the Broncos and Chargers for the AFC West. And while I understand why some people are putting the Chiefs in the back seat, and you and I have said on this podcast more than once, and here it goes again, I do think the Chiefs are primed. This is no guarantee, but primed for a step back. I do think that step back is going to be relatively modest. It's going to seem bigger than it is, though, because all of a sudden in their own backyard, they got Russell Wilson. And so it's going to be to compete against. And so it's going to make them look worse when they're no longer the only team, with double-digit wins when December begins or whatever, right? Like they've just been the juggernaut in the AFC West now for 6 consecutive years. So when a team comes in that is quarterbacked and captained by a 9-time Pro Bowler and a guy who's won a Super Bowl, the Chiefs, the bloom's going to fall off the rose a little bit. And that's if Tyreek Hill was still in Kansas City and if they had some of their, or I should say didn't have some of their personnel issues. And if it didn't appear Andy Reid kind of ran out of ideas in the title game. But I digress a little bit. My point here, Zach, is don't go to sleep on the Chiefs. It's still the Chiefs. Like they've 6 straight division crowns. Don't sleep on them.
You think that would be common sense, but it's not for a lot of people. And I think anyone counting the Chiefs out is a little moronic. It's one thing to say they're going to take a step back. They're not going to be the superpower, but they still have Patrick Mahomes, still have Andy Reid. They've added some weapons to offset the loss of Tyreek Hill. They're going to be fine. And the Broncos, we talked about it yesterday, Chad, about waking up in December and taking the season off and assuming you're going to get there. They have to prove they're that good. They have to topple Kansas City in the division to get to that status. So nothing's a cakewalk. And to be fair, to be objective and realistic, all of these teams will battle it out. I wouldn't be surprised if any team won the West, whether it's Kansas City, the Raiders, or the Broncos, or the Chargers. But to automatically assume and label Denver as the 4th best and automatically count them out and crap on Russell Wilson, I think that's short-sighted, and I think it's ignorant.
Robot of Doom, shout out to you. Pardon me, my friend on Twitch. Yes, happy Memorial Day indeed. Shout out to Albert Knoppers, who says these reporters must have been trained by Colin Cowherd. Indeed. Chris Hernandez, yes, a veteran himself, throwing down huge stars, who says, remember and honor the nation's fallen. And yes, dude, right there. I'm one of those guys, Zach, and I wasn't always this way. It's really weird. I don't know how a switch flips. I don't know how something like what I'm about to explain to you changes, but you go to a sporting event, what's the first thing in the United States that right before the game kicks off, they're going to sing the national anthem? And I'm a guy now that gets a little verklempt because I don't know if it's something about everybody together kind of like, singing the song or whatever, and it's loud on the PA system or whatever. But I start thinking about, as Chris is talking here, the nation's fallen and the people who do sacrifice to go out there and defend the United States. Like I get a little choked up. I'm not talking openly weeping in the stands, but I get a little like, you get an emotional kind of like that. And you're like, okay, cool, whatever. Didn't used to be that way though, for what it's worth. All right. Shout out. If you guys get a little bit verklempt when you're in the stadium for the national anthem, I want to hear it in the chat.
First of all, thank you, Chris, for your service, and anyone who has served, will serve or serving now. Thank you so much, sincerely and humbly. I'm a very proud American, as you can see. I love my country, Chad. I know it's a hot take nowadays, but I really don't care. I'm going to stand by it. I know you do too, as well. We have to remember that on a day like today, at least to pay our respects to those who earned it, and they've earned it for sure.
Also, a little birdie told me that we might see Chris at the meet and greet in Denver, Week 3, Broncos, Niners. That would be rad. Jeff, jumping in. Thank you for the super chat, big dog. It's great to see you. He says the Broncos will be 4-2 in the division. Not sure which team they will sweep. Yeah, I mean, I still don't quite understand why the Raiders didn't just roll the dice on Rich Bisaccia, because they captured some lightning in the bottle, dude. Like, they did something relatively special there. But I think the Broncos, they haven't won in Vegas yet since it's been in Vegas, right? They're winless against the Raiders in Vegas. So you can't discount them. But again, we're not talking about the Teddy-led Broncos. We're not talking about the Drew Lock-led Broncos. We're talking about Russell Wilson.
Thank
and
God.
When the chips are down and it's, crap or get off the pot, who's going to come out on top time, more often than not, we've seen through a decade of sample size, albeit in Seattle, but nevertheless, Russ finds a way, makes a way, and that's what you need. And that's something the Broncos have lacked now since Peyton.
Well, you say 4-2 doesn't mean they're going to sweep someone, but for the sake of conversation, I will say the Raiders are a prime opponent to be swept, considering they swept the Broncos the last 2 seasons or a couple years ago. I know they swept them 2 seasons in a row, Chad?
Who, the Raiders?
Yeah.
The Raiders swept the Broncos last year. Yeah, it is 2 years in a row. They swept them in 20 as well.
Wow. Yeah, that needs to change. The Broncos need to break out their brooms as well, and I think it could happen with McDaniels at the helm. Regardless, though, that's a team that I'm not as high on personally. I think the Broncos can take care of them. I don't think Derek Carr can match what the Broncos can do on offense, and they don't have anywhere near the defense the Broncos could have either, so I'll say Vegas.
Yeah, the last time the Broncos beat the Raiders, it was Drew Lock's 5th start of his rookie year. For what it's worth.
That's embarrassing. That has to change now.
Yeah, it's been a minute. But now it's bugging me. Let me double check this. Yeah, lost to the Raiders in 2020 in Vegas, 37-12. That was an ugly beatdown. I do remember that now. And then the season finale kept it close, but ultimately came up short, 32-31.
Should have won that game.
Yeah, so that's 2 years in a row. And for the majority of the John Gruden era with the Raiders, they would split each year, 1-1. And fans, always kind of disregarding the Raiders, and yet they'd split each and every year. But yeah, it's now 4 consecutive victories over the Denver Broncos, which you think to yourself, how do you get to 13 straight victories like the Chiefs have? Well, you got to start with 4 if you're going to get to 13. So that's a pretty serious role the Raiders are on.
It's seriously embarrassing for someone like the Broncos, a proud, historic franchise, and I hope they get back to that level soon. 13 straight against Kansas City, 4 straight against the Raiders. That has to change, man. Let's hope it will soon.
Phil, you're the man, dude. Good to see you. Happy Memorial Day to you as well. He says, I'm just stopping by to say hi. On to a barbecue. Go enjoy that barbecue, my dog. Let's ride MHH for life. And here we have, real quick, Zach, Albert making a solid point. It's not all about the acquisitions. What happened to the dream team in Philly? Right. It was a colossal fail, right? But the biggest thing here is okay, you want to, well, I just boxed myself into a kind of a logical fallacy there. The Broncos, let's not pretend they'd even be in the top 10 if it wasn't for their offseason acquisitions, namely, of course, landing Russ. So what's more valuable overall, or what should improve a team's stock within the power rankings type of setting, Zach? Acquiring a 33-year-old 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback, or Khalil Mack,
right,
an edge rusher who has dealt with some pretty serious injury problems the last few years in the league. No spring chicken. I get it. There's a little bit more of a tangible thing there because they go, all right, Justin Herbert's been in the league 2 years now. We kind of think we know what he is. And that young head coach looked dang good to open his first season in LA, but then kind of faded down the stretch. I'm trying to think of it from their perspective. I'm trying to steel man the argument, but I'm grasping at straws because it still does not make any sense to me.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, if anyone in the West is having a dream team scenario, it's LA, not Denver. Denver added a major piece at quarterback, but kind of, except for Randy Gregory, what other major splashes were there? Nick Bonito or, DJ Jones? But look what the Chargers did. You mentioned Khalil Mack, but also handing J.C. Jackson $82.5 million. It's a lot of money. They're going all in under Brandon Staley. Let's see if it works out for him. I don't think it will.
I'm just not convinced even. Look, Herbert is a very good young quarterback. I don't want to take that away from him. The biggest thing I've seen in him that detracts from him being like a bona fide guy, that makes you automatic, top 5 power rankings guy. When the chips are down in those key moments in the game at the end, he doesn't come out on top in those situations as often as he should, if that's who he is, if he's going to be that guy. Now, a big part of that, Zach, could just simply be he's a young guy growing into the job and he's getting experience. And as he encounters those opportunities, the chips down opportunities more and more, he's going to start overcoming them. And I'm sure that's true in many respects, but I just haven't seen, Justin Herbert hasn't blown my socks off in that sense quite yet. Robot of Doom says, hot take, even though I never wish injury on any player or team, the Chargers are going to suffer from the injury bug and go 7-10 without Herbert for half the year. That's a very bold prediction, Zach, but the Chargers have been a cursed team when it comes to the injury bug the last half decade especially.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen because I want to beat LA at full strength. I don't want any excuses. Oh, you beat us without, our starting quarterback. Injuries are always a part of the game. They've impacted LA quite a bit, especially Derwin James, and Khalil Mack is no spring chicken, as you mentioned, Chad, and they have some players on that team that have dealt with injury history in the past. I was going to say to your Herbert point, though, I think I'm acknowledging he's a good quarterback, even a really good quarterback. I can make the case for top 5 for Justin Herbert, top 6. I can't make the case top 5 for the Chargers, if that matters, if that makes sense. It's one thing to say he's a good quarterback, but he hasn't carried a great team record-wise.
That's my point, is you can't, in order to be in that category, it can't just be individual stats or accolades. I mean, that's step one, but for the true franchise quarterbacks, Zach, the accolades come individually because it led to team success, collective success. And we just haven't seen that yet from the Chargers, and certainly nowhere close to justify putting them in the top 5 of these ridiculous power rankings. Stop it.
2. How? Why? Don't stop. Why? It's crazy. Crazy talk.
Rodney Garcia on Facebook. Great to see you, my friend. He says, the Broncos O-line is way better than the Raiders and will struggle against our pass rush. There's no way the Raiders will finish on top of the Broncos. Zach, your thoughts?
I don't know about that, Rodney. I really don't. I know I said the Raiders' strength isn't their defense. They have some holes, especially in their back end and in their secondary, but who's starting at right tackle? Who's starting at center? Who's starting at the guard positions? We don't know that. We know Garrett Bowles is the left tackle. He hasn't been exactly the ideal of perfect, the last couple of years. He's been good, maybe not great. He kind of regressed last year, but they had a great pass rush already with Max Crosby. They added Chandler Jones to their defense. That's going to pose a problem for any line in the NFL, but especially the Broncos, considering Billy Turner is their right tackle. Who's their right guard? We do not know. Who's the center? We do not know. Who's the left guard? We do not know. I would stop short of saying that. I think right now the Raiders defensive line has the edge over the Broncos offensive line.
Let's grab Sam Bam jumping in and congratulate you for being in the top 5 now, dude, on Super Chat this month. I mean, you closed the gap right within the last day or two. So that's cool, bro. I hope you stick. I really do. He said the Broncos are going 12-5, 6-2 in the first, 3-0 after the bye, 3-3 in the last 6. Go Broncos. Okay, so you got a 12-5 prediction from Sam Bam. I'm going to put them around 11 wins because here's the thing. And, we talked about this when the schedule came out, Zach, but the one thing that I'm just not I'm sure about what the Broncos have in Russell Wilson. And I think in a general sense, when you say the Broncos are going to go as far as Russell Wilson will take them, it's true, but that could either be an accelerated process, Zach, or an impeded process depending on just how good Nathaniel Hackett is. Like if Nathaniel Hackett ends up being the truth, dude, this team is going to be more than a juggernaut. But if he ends up kind of bumping his head quite a bit along the way and, trial and error, learning curve, all that stuff, which there's going to be some of that. Most guys, the coaches that end up becoming something, they shorten that learning curve, and the bumps in the road they get over much quicker. So that's the only thing is, how long is it going to take for Nathaniel Hackett's offense to really sink in with Russ? All these first-time coordinators, all these new position coaches. I mean, even Butch Barry coaching the O-line today. I'm writing up an article about Quinn Miners and what he said about his first impression of his new O-line coach that replaced Mike Munchak, Butch Barry. It's like, oh, yeah, he was an assistant there. He was an assistant O-line coach there. He was assistant there. So many first-timers in their positions, it's justifiable, Zach, to have some misgivings, not to doubt or necessarily hate, but it's just a matter of, hey, if those things come together, golly, dude, Russ, this team will be loaded for bear. But if they've got those learning curves, it can take a little bit more time than you might think initially.
I think you make such a great point about Nathaniel Hackett. At base, considering what the Broncos have done, the players they've added, the pieces, at base, they're a 10-win team, I would say. They could be an 11-win team, 12-win team, 13-win team, depending on how Hackett and his coaching staff, to be fair, Stukes and Evero and everyone else out, and how they coalesce. But you're 100% right about that. They're going to go as far as Russell Wilson takes them and how Nathaniel Hackett coaches them. That is 100% spot on. I'm looking at the schedule, though. He predicted 3-0 after the bye. The bye is in week 9. The Broncos have the Titans, the Raiders, and the Panthers after that. At Tennessee, home for Vegas, and at Carolina. I could see 2-1, but 3-0, I don't know.
Tim Hoffman with some huge stars on Facebook. Thank you, buddy. Seriously, really appreciate that. I hope we hit goal. It's going to take a photo finish for us to hit goal. In fact, I'll tell you, going in tonight's live stream, we are at, we're at basically 50% of the way there to hit goal. So it can be done. We've seen it happen before. This is going to be a big help toward that end. Appreciate that, Tim. He says, I just hope our wide receivers step up to the plate. Our tight ends, our finally improved O-line, that they all step up. No excuses on the quarterback position now. Our defense will still be, if not better than last year, I think he meant to say our defense will still be good, if not better than last year. Thank you to all who serve and served. Go Broncos. Amen to that, my friend. Is this defense as good, if not better, than the unit last year, Zach? Is it going to be?
I mean, where did they get worse? That's what I'm looking at. I'm talking about how the Broncos ended. So no Von Miller. Did they get better on paper? I would say, yeah. They added DJ Jones. They added Randy Gregory, Nick Benito. They added K'Wan Williams to the secondary. I would have liked to see more of an emphasis on inside linebacker, but you might not need it under Ejiro Evero. So they were top 5 in scoring last year. You can argue it's the scheme, but that was the trade-off. Maybe Fangio is better in scoring defense, but they weren't getting takeaways. They weren't changing the game. They weren't getting the ball back for the offense. That is going to change. I happen to think they will be better. They'll be top 10 across the board in most categories under Ejiro Evero, just based on the talent alone on that defense.
I think they have the talent to be better. I'm just not convinced yet that they will be, because so many different factors have to come out in the wash for that to happen, including, as you just mentioned, Evero being the guy that they hope he can be as a coordinator. And all indications are he can be that guy. I mean, being groomed for that NFL coaching futures deal that he just got back from and all that stuff. Then, Randy Gregory, is he going to be healthy? Bradley Chubb, is he going to be healthy? You get past that, some questions on the D-line. Draymond Jones, I think both you and I agree that we feel like he's primed for a true breakout year, but can he hold up as a true run stopper on defense? Who's going to start on that other defensive end spot? Josie Jewell, hey, we saw the best ball we'd ever seen from Josie before he got hurt last year. But up until that point, Zach, it was solid. It's definitely nothing you would write home about. Nothing to lead me to say this is like an elite defense because Josie Jewell's manning the middle. If you get the same version that he was before the pec injury, hey, maybe it can be. And then who's going to be the linebacker next to him? Is it Alex Singleton? Is it going to be Baron Browning? Is it Jonas Griffith? We don't know. I think the secondary, though, is going to be this team's saving grace. No matter what happens with the edge guys as far as health is concerned, how long it takes for the D-line to kind of coalesce, that whole front seven. Yeah. The defensive secondary, I think, is what's going to save this team. And look at this freaking massive super chat from our friend and Mount Rushmore superstar, D-Dub. Dale, love you, big dog. Thank you so much. Dale Hats off to you, my friend. A very wise man. Many conversations I've had with this dude. He says, bring on the haters. Write their names in the sand. Russell will be chiseling his name in stone.
I like that.
And he's a poet, dude. We'll see them all at the 50-yard line. Bring it on. Right back at you, bro.
This is why I said yesterday, I've been saying for a while, the Broncos absolutely have to win week 1. If there ever was a situation where week 1 was a must-win game, it is that situation for the Broncos. It would set the tone for the entire season, but most importantly, it'd be a giant FU to the KJ Wrights and the Nick Wrights and the, all the Skip Baylesses and Colin Cowards that are writing the Broncos off. They have to prove that they're for real. They're not just pretend contenders. They are legitimate contenders. And I'm right there with you. Bring them on, baby.
Dale, give our best to the missus, and it's so great to have you, bro. Thank you for the support. We love you. Andrew Baker, I highly doubt our run game struggles, but if it does, is that when Russ might struggle? Because I don't see any other downside for Wilson other than his height. LOL, hashtag MHH for life. It's funny because I was writing about this again today, talking to Quinn Miners. A quarterback's best friend is a prolific running game that he can count on. But I don't think Russ needs that per se.
Right.
Very rarely since or during his time as a Seahawk, Zach, did Seattle ever really kind of put the whole weight of the team on his shoulders and say, get out there and let Russ cook? Like, everything was centered around the running game. And then whatever Russ could do above and beyond that it was like the cherry on top. Sometimes it worked to stunning success. Like when they had Marshawn Lynch, that was a potent formula, but they never really catered specifically to Russ in the same kind of way that you see teams who, recognizing they have a franchise quarterback, going all in and building around that guy and scheming to his strengths and the whole 9 yards. So it's a kind of a long-winded way, Andrew, of saying that I don't think you got to worry about either issue, because I do think it's going to be a good running game. I think that wide zone is going to click sooner than you might think. But even if it doesn't, I don't think Russ needs it to do his thing. I really don't. You need some threat of a running game. Don't get me wrong, but Russ doesn't need this to be like the Niners last year, rushed for over 2,100 yards as a team. That would be nice. That'd be great for Russ. I don't think he needs that, though, to go out and be effective and win games for this team.
Yep, nailed it. I think that he might be better if the Broncos running game struggles. Quite honestly, he was being held back from throwing the ball and really cooking in Seattle. That's why the hashtag was born. Well, maybe if he had to throw, he had to make plays. If the weight of the team was on his shoulders, he would rise to that challenge and get back to being in the 4,500 yard passing club, maybe even 5,000 yards. I'm with Chad, though. I doubt, the law of averages would dictate one of the two running backs will succeed, either Melvin Gordon or Javonte on any given week. But if they were to either suffer an injury, God forbid, or struggle, Russ can pick them up. That's the power of a franchise quarterback. What do you always say, Chad? Raising the tide around you, raising all ships, all boats. That's what Russell Wilson does. He's a Category 5 hurricane in the ocean, raising everything up around him.
Well said. The Duchess, again, thank you, Michaela. She says, does anyone have any idea who the Seattle quarterback will be? LOL. Yeah, everyone I talk to in Seattle media is telling me that it's Geno's job to lose, Geno Smith. But if Drew Lock can't beat out Geno Smith, then his fate is sealed. That's it. If you can't beat out Geno Smith in this training camp, this is kind of like your last chance to really prove you're more than a backup caliber guy in the league. If you can't vanquish Geno Smith, probably not meant to be in the league, would be my guess.
Michaela wishes it'll be Drew Lock. Appreciate your support, Michaela, and your comment. I kind of do too, not because I want some vengeance against Drew, but I just want him to get his shot as a quarterback for a full season. I think regardless of who Seattle trots out, they're going to get blown out, quite frankly, by the Broncos and Russ's homecoming. But between Geno and Drew, I'm definitely rooting for Drew if I had a vested interest, which I really don't.
Dude, just the storylines alone are delicious if you get Drew as the starter. Then you get it all into one thing, right? You get to talk about Drew, in the Broncos revenge game. You get to talk about Shelby in the revenge and Noah in the revenge. And then, of course, conversely, Russ in the revenge. So we can only hope for more than one reason. Robot of Doom says, is Butch Berry better than Mike Munchak? And where did he come from? Was it San Fran? Yes, it was San Fran. Let me do a little share screen for you guys. Okay, we can talk about specifically what Quinn Miners said. But here's basically what you need to know about Butch Berry. Been an O-line coach for 13 years. Spent the 2020 season with Hackett in Green Bay. Last year, San Francisco as an assistant O-line coach. So he wasn't the O-line coach, assistant. The Niners O-line helped lead the way to the team ranking in the top 10 in several offensive categories, including passing yards per play, red zone touchdown percentage, total yards per game, and rushing yards per game. San Francisco's O-line sprung the ball carriers for a combined 2,166 rush yards and 22 scores, which led them all the way to the NFC title game, of which, of course, they lost to the Rams. So he's been in the league a while. People want to know, like, why did you go from one of the most, if you're Nathaniel Hackett and you just got the job and you're surveying your assistant staff and you say, I've got one of the top 2 or 3 O-line coaches in the league here that I can retain, but I'm going to go with this other guy. One reason only, and that's not even so much because Butch Berry has a better reputation or is more accomplished. He obviously isn't in either case. It's that his specialty is the zone scheme, and he was groomed with that in the whole Shanahan thing, from being with Hackett and LaFleur in Green Bay and then being with Shanahan this last season in San Francisco. And that's what it was all about. It was more of a priority to Hackett, Zach, to have a guy who was an expert in teaching and coaching what kind of blocking scheme the Broncos are going to be transitioning to than a guy with a reputation that, is nice for 1 or 2 headlines each year.
See, I don't think Mike Munchak was top 2 or top 3. I think his name was and his reputation was, but the results didn't show for me. He never made
definitely not in Denver.
No, that's what I'm talking about during his time there. I never was that impressed with Mike Munchak. I love the hire when they made it. I liked having him as OL coach a lot more than head coach, which he interviewed for. But I never saw the payoff. I mean, who got better under his watch? Garrett Bowles for one season when the NFL wasn't calling holding during the pandemic season. Who else, though? Reisner got worse. They never developed. Cushenberry never stood out. And where is he right now, Mike Munchak? The unemployment line.
Sure.
Yeah, he's not hired by anyone as far as I know. So I don't think he's that great. I think his reputation is, and I think Butch Berry will be better for what Nathaniel Hackett wants to do. We have to remember, though, the Broncos did not hire Kyle Shanahan, whose genius is the reason why the Niners have such a great running game, but hiring the OL coach certainly helped. And he brought in Tom Compton from the Niners over as well to compete for right tackle. So that's why it's worth noting that maybe Compton could fight Turner for that spot.
Yeah, on February 2nd, it was announced that the Broncos would be parting ways with Munchak, and he is currently not coaching. But I don't think that's so much to do with a lack of opportunity. Remember, one of the reasons he wanted the Denver Broncos head coaching job to begin with was Mama Bear, her grandbabies were in Denver now, and so they wanted to move closer to the grandbabies, and that would have killed 2 birds with 1 stone. He didn't get the job. Fangio got it, but when Fangio offered, hey, stick around, be the O-line coach, he's like, yeah, sounds good. And they moved to Denver. So he might be at a point. Remember, this is a guy who's been the head coach in the league. He's held down a position coach as an O-line guy since then with the Steelers and then the Broncos. And he's a Hall of Fame guard. Like, he's in the Hall of Fame for his prowess as a player, offensive lineman. He probably values currently, Zach, staying in Denver and being close to his grandbabies more than continuing to coach in the league. At least that would be my – but, yeah, Garrett Bowles is his success story in Denver. And it's hard to try and pick too many nits in that because Bowles did morph seemingly overnight into the arguably best left tackle in the league. Now, I get it, that was 2020, and as you pointed out, they were a little reticent to throw out the yellow laundry that particular season. Last year, a step back from what he showed in 2020, Garrett Bowles, but I'm not going to say this was anything even close to as bad as he was the first 3 years in the league. That's a success story, but you can't really point to any other guy on that line, Zach, and say, job well done, coach. I mean, maybe Quinn Miners. Miners was under his tutelage last year, and it was only 1 year, but Miners was the truth.
If I could push back for 1 second, I just want to ask you non-rhetorically, you know how good a good offensive line coach is, how hard it is to find? And if he was that good, would he still be unemployed? Is my point here. So I don't know. Like Vic Fangio, he was a defensive genius and mastermind. He said he had a job in 5 minutes. Where is he now? At his house, on his couch.
Who was it that I'm trying to remember now? He was watching a practice in the NFL. He's at an OTA watching some team practice. Was it San Francisco?
Niners,
I think it was. Yeah. Travis, Big T. I don't mean to change subjects, but will Denver have the new ownership in place by the season? It was thought it would be May by a few months back, and here we are heading into June. The only time frame I ever heard, Zach, was hopefully by the beginning of the season they'll have a resolution. That's really the only time frame I ever had that was semi-solid, and we're still in the pocket for that.
Hopefully soon. That's all I know.
Real quick though, a little bit more about Butch Berry, and then we'll get off this topic. This is what Quinn Miners said last week. He says, right here, he says, every coach, this is kind of his first impression of Butch Berry. Every coach has their own way they approach how to coach. Coach Berry is an intense coach. Everyone is intense. That's what you love about being coached by someone like that. He's really focused on getting us to run off the ball. This is an emphasis. You might have noticed what impressed Nathaniel Hackett about Netani Muti. He's faster than I thought he'd be. Gets off the ball quick. That is crucial in the ZBS, all right, zone blocking. Miners, like I was saying, that was part of the reason that I lost the 10 pounds and stuff. So far, it's been great to be coached by Coach Berry, and I'm excited to keep progressing throughout the year with him, close quote. And then for what it's worth, Zach, when he was asked, even though I think you had the article for us when Hackett said this, Hackett basically entrenched him as the team's starting right guard at the NFL owners meetings. He was asked, Miners, hey, you're going to play right guard, right? Like that's your job to lose basically. And he was like, hey, I don't know. And like, in other words, no one's told him he's going to be the right guard quite yet.
Yeah, he said, I think Hackett slipped up. He said he's going to be a good right guard for us. Not a good guard, a good right guard. So that's pretty telling. And I would leave him there. I wouldn't move him around like some people are maybe saying move him to center. No, keep him at one position, let him grow there, and I think he'll thrive.
We've got a legendary figure in our midst. Another one. GLP, probably known to his friends and family as Gary Leeds Palmer. He says, hey, Chad, Zach, and Scott, sorry I missed the start, but I'll catch up later. Go Broncos. Let's ride. Thanks for checking in, bro. Always great to have you in the chat. Appreciate you, GLP.
He's known to us as a legend. That's what it is.
Legendary figure, this man. All right, we're at 43 minutes. We're doing okay. Rodney wants to know, do we have Sam Martin still, or is this his last season? Yeah, he's still a Bronco, still under contract. It is his contract year, right? I want to say. This is year 3. It was a 3-year deal. He's one of those bubble guys. He really is, because they brought in, I forget the kid's name now, Zach. I'll pull it up, but they brought in some competition for him, not for Brandon McManus, not for Jacob Obenmoyer, for Sam Martin, because one thing I never understood with John Elway, he loved throwing money at special teams specialists. Loved paying those dudes, whether it was, Jesus Christ, I just brain farted the kid's name, dude. Britton Colquitt, Brandon McManus. I never quite understood why they didn't, considering Elway's propensity for throwing money at these guys, why they didn't stubbornly hold on to Matt Prater. But nevertheless, Sam Martin's making more money than he's worth right now, and the Broncos are hoping, obviously, by bringing in this punter that he can give him a plausible enough performance to justify moving on from Sam Martin.
I never realized or kind of put it together. The Broncos signed him to a 3-year contract. How weird is that? A 3-year deal for a middle-of-the-pack punter. He's not exactly Ray Guy in his prime. So I don't know what Elway was thinking. You mentioned he had an affinity for special teamers, and Sam Martin fit that bill. I think he can be – we talked about it yesterday. We were asked for surprise cuts. I don't know if he qualifies as a surprise, but if I can upgrade on Sam Martin, get cheaper and get younger, I'm definitely doing that. He's not worth his cap figure.
Here's the kid they brought in to push him. Corliss Waitman, number 17, 1 year of experience in the league, 26, from South Alabama, 6'2", 210 pounds. He's punted a little bit in the league, but not much. So if he can vanquish Sam Martin, they'll save some, what is it, $3 million on the cap, I want to say, Zach. I'll double check that, but close to that.
Waitman's a former Raider, too. I wrote about him when the signing first happened. He has a pretty big leg, and that's what I'm saying. I'd rather give a younger guy a shot, a cheaper guy, than keep rolling the dice with Sam Martin, who's never wowed me from the punting position.
So his total cap number approaches $3 million. It's $2.7 million. If they cut him before June 1st, they would save $2.25 million on the cap with only $483K in dead money. If they cut post, it's the same. So, yeah, I'm kind of pulling for Corliss just because Sam Martin. First of all, I recoil at the notion of throwing that kind of money. Not to say it's like crazy money, but they gave him a 3-year, $7-something million contract. I recoil at giving specialists that much money unless you are one of the like elite kickers. And I know elite punters can really help you win some ball games, Zach. But like, back in the day, Jason Elam, yeah, keep that dude happy and paid. The Colts with Adam Vinatieri all those years and the Patriots before him, keep him happy, keep him paid. I don't think Brandon McManus, people have told me before that I don't fully appreciate, that I underappreciate Brandon McManus, but I don't have that feeling. Like when Matt Prater would get up, I don't care if it was a 35-yarder or a 53-yarder to win the game. I never was like, man, I don't know if this one's going to go through. Brandon McManus, I still have that flip a coin feeling in my gut every time he lines up to kick something.
I mean, you talked about Brady, you talked about Vinatieri, but can anyone name the Patriots punter during those Super Bowl teams? I mean, when's the last time a punter won a Super Bowl? I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean, they're important, but they're punters. So if you can get cheaper, you can save whatever, $3 million under that, 2.2, whatever. I'm probably doing that. I'd rather give it to Russ than give it to Sam Martin.
I don't remember the name, but probably a safe bet it was a southpaw punter, a lefty. That's one of Belichick's things. Here we have Outdoors Geek. Newer name on Super Chat, Zach, that I'm aware, right? Welcome. Thank you, big dog. Very generous of you. Help keep the lights on here at MHH. He says, Denver is going to put up some incredible numbers. We got to get pressure on the QBs, though. Our defense looks good on paper, but we still got to interrupt the passing game of others. Well said, dude. Well said.
Yeah, if you look at the sack numbers in the Fangio era, you'll probably cringe because of what he fancies himself to be, this defensive guru, but he wasn't getting production. He wasn't getting takeaway sacks. They weren't getting after the quarterback very well. I don't like bend but don't break. I want to break the opposing quarterback. That's why you brought in Randy Gregory. You have Nick Bonito, who you drafted. You have Bradley Chubb. You moved Baron Browning to edge. You should. Draymond Jones, DJ Jones on the defensive line. You should be able to get after the quarterback, and I think the Broncos will and lead in that category, maybe top 5 in sacks.
It is kind of ironic that the last time this team was like remotely prolific rushing the passer was VJ's last year, 2018, when Vaughn and Chubb shared 26.5 sacks. Fangio stood at the podium only a month, not even 2 weeks after that season ended. Vaughn can be even better than what he's been. It's like, dude, this is like, if not, okay, who are the all-time great edge rushers? Like, who's number one? It's Lawrence Taylor. You can't say it's ever going to be anybody other than Lawrence Taylor, at least for now. As much as I love Vaughn and as good as he was, not LT good, but that next tier of players that would be in the running for it, I think Vaughn's right at the front of that line. And Vic Fangio comes in and says, I think he can be even better. And then Vaughn proceeds to fade into oblivion and then get traded to the Rams.
Good call, Vic. Yeah, it would have been like if Kubiak got hired and in his intro presser, he started talking about Peyton Manning. Like, why are you doing that? Like, that was the first red flag, I think, with Vic. When he said that, we looked at each other like, I don't know about this one.
We made some hay with it, though. We most certainly made some hay. All right, we're at 49 minutes. Real quick, Zach, I want to get your thoughts on this cat. Eric Trickle is diligently going through and breaking down the Broncos' entire 90-man roster. And I almost had to be reminded of this guy as I was copy editing Eric's article here. But the Broncos have themselves a bona fide CFL star trying to push the bottom of that edge rushing depth chart, a cat by the name of Jonathan Kongbo. Kind of interesting. We learn here from Eric that Kongbo is 26, was born in the Republic of Zaire, which was a state of Congolese, but is now part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. He attended high school in Canada. All right. College career, initially gets a scholarship to Wyoming, but he never plays. He ends up transferring to JUCO to play for the at Arizona Western, and then ends up becoming a JUCO All-American and a highly coveted JUCO prospect, and lands in the SEC at Tennessee. Put out some good tape, writes Eric here, playing about 1,100 snaps for the Vols. Picked off a couple passes, totaled 58 pressures, 18 stops. Nothing to really write home about. As he writes, versatility was shown, but he didn't have one particular area he stood out in. And then his final year was cut short due to an ACL. So instead of going all in, hoping for the NFL draft, he threw his hat in the ring for the CFL and was viewed for a long time as the top prospect in that class. Ended up being drafted 5th overall in the CFL. And he's since then, Zach, bounced back and forth from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to the league, where they'll cut him because he's asking them to cut him. I want to go try out for this NFL team, and they'll cut him, release him from his contract. And then when it doesn't pan out, like it didn't for him in San Francisco, they bring him back. And under a format or a relationship like that, Zach, Kongbo has helped them win 2 Grey Cups. For what it's worth, does this dude fit into this depth chart, or is this going to be another summer of NFL disappointment for Jonathan Kongbo?
I mean, I'm kind of hoping he makes the team just so we can give him the nickname Donkey Kongbo. It's perfect for him. But I don't. That. Where does he fit in, though? I mean, does he beat out Deshaun Williams for a final roster spot? Is he even going to be? How many linemen are the Broncos carrying? I don't know. Where he fits in on defense, where he's going to, even if you play him at outside linebacker or defensive end, whatever, is he going to beat out any of those players? I can see maybe Aaron Patrick he can beat out, but I don't know. He has a long road to hoe.
I am still trying to find out why everyone in Denver, and when I say everyone in Denver, I mean like the team brass, loves Aaron Patrick. George Payton gushes. Anytime the name comes up, Aaron Patrick, freak. Dwayne Stukes called him a core special teams player. One of 2 names that he mentioned is core special teamers. I don't think Aaron Patrick's going to be as easy to vanquish for a guy like Jonathan Kongbo as, say, even a Jonathan Cooper or Malik Reed, to be honest with you, just because of that third phase utility.
He would have to hope, and I hate to say it, that maybe Malik Reed or Cooper gets injured. Cooper's already hurt. He has a finger injury and surgery. Practice squad guy, maybe? A guy you stash away for a year? I don't see him making the 53, though, but we'll see.
Shade Tree Mech jumping in, another newer name. Welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you. Who do you think, he says on Super Chat, we pick up to add depth to the offensive line? Zach,
there's one obvious one. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed now that Billy Turner is still having trouble with his knee. Calvin Anderson was out during OTAs last week. I don't know his status just yet. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing back Bobby Massey. I mean, you could do worse at right tackle. The Broncos certainly have had worse at right tackle over the years. He was okay. And as another option, another insurance policy, I think he would be fine. They pretty much have better depth on the interior than on the outside. So if there's one guy, Bobby Massey is that guy to me.
And all 3 guys they've got in the running for right tackle / swing. 1-year deal, $2.5 million.
Yeah.
Here's a few of the names, though, because I agree with you. I don't think there's really any need to go add anyone for the interior. They got a lot of investment on the interior between free agent dollars into guys like Graham Glasgow and then recent draft picks, Lloyd, Cushenberry, Dalton Reisner, Netani Muti, Quinn Miners. I think, and then even paying a little money to Ben Braden. If they're going to tweak, I think they're going to tweak at tackle. So here's a few of the names, and I'm risking it here because Spot Track, man, it kills your browser. So I'm going to be really quick on this. Hopefully you guys can make out some of these names. Let me blow it up a little bit more here.
Look at the age column.
Yes. First. All right. Let me get rid of some of these. Okay. So Nate Solder, Dwayne Brown. Nate's 34, Dwayne's 36. Dwayne would be a guy to kind of keep an eye on as a dark horse because of his connection to Russ, all right, in Seattle. JC Treader, though, is a center. Brian Bulaga is still out there, according to Spot Track. Miss me on Eric Flowers. Miss me on Matt Paradis. Eric Fisher. Daryl Williams.
That's the one guy.
Riley Reef.
They worked out Brandon Shell. Sorry to cut you off, Chad,
Yeah.
but they worked out Brandon Shell earlier before they signed Billy Turner, so maybe him.
Makes you wonder, what did they not like what they saw? I don't know. Mike Remmers, who was posterized for all time by Von Miller in Super Bowl 50. But really, who jumps off the page here? No one particularly to me, Zach, besides Dwayne Brown. But he's 36. I mean, this dude's teeth are so long. He puts a saber-toothed tiger to shame. That's how old this cat is. Okay, he's 36, dude. So I don't know. I think they're pretty happy, to be honest with you, with the bodies they've got right now at O-line. But if they're going to reserve a little Evan Mathis money for the O-line, I think it's going to be a tackle.
Yeah, Alton really likes the competition they have. He called it a veteran position, and they have veterans there if Anderson and Compton and Turner can all compete and stay healthy. Darrell Williams was one guy that I kind of circled before the offseason really started as maybe an insurance policy, a veteran guy they can bring in. He's only 29, right tackle experience. He played for Buffalo. They could do worse. I mean, they have to have a sum of all their parts situation at right tackle because, yet again, for another year, they ignored investing a premium player at that spot.
Bruce Smithdale still remains on top of the pile as the most sacks all time, but he wasn't a stand-up outside linebacker. He was a hand-in-the-dirt defensive end 4-3 guy, an edge rusher, to be sure. We're not talking about like a J.J. Watt or Aaron Donald who put up prolific sacks from the inside, but I'm talking outside linebacker, stand-up edge guys. Vaughn, I mean, the guys who come just short of Lawrence Taylor, in my opinion. Who else? Vaughn, Charles Haley, maybe. I mean, even DeMarcus Ware is up there. Kennedy, who am I missing, dude? I'm having a brain fart here in the clutch, but that's the big thing. And shout out to Bruce Smith, dude, one of the smartest guys to ever suit up. Him and Reggie White, very similar in the kind of football they played and the type of players they were, although Reggie was definitely a more powerful guy in his prime. But yeah, shout out Bruce Smith. I don't know that figure will ever be broken. It's either 199 or 200 sacks all time.
Crazy. That's an insane amount of sacks.
I'm going to look it up now. Most sacks all time, NFL. Yeah, so Bruce Smith, 200 sacks, followed by Reggie White, Zach, with 198. Then Deacon Jones, Kevin Green, who recently passed. Julius Peppers is 5 with 159. Chris Dolman, not to be slept on. Jack Youngblood. Alan Page from back in the 60s to very early 80s. LT is ranked 9th, but just because he's ranked 9th doesn't mean he's not still the greatest outside linebacker of all time. Strahan, number 10. Jason Taylor, Terrell Suggs, DeMarcus Ware's 13. Von Miller, he's currently tied for 31st with the most sacks all time, 115 and a half. Wow. And he's still got a ways to go.
That shows how incredible of a feat what Bruce Smith did. If Vaughn, considering his career, is still only 31st. And he was, what's funny is Bruce Smith was a mentor for Von Miller a couple of years ago. He was working out with them and having pass rushing clinics with Bruce Smith. If there was any player in the current NFL that could have got the record or came close to it, it was Vaughn. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Guys, this has been so much fun. We appreciate you spending an hour with us tonight. I got to remind you, so in case you missed it, some of you were going, wait a minute, there was no Broncos for breakfast this morning? Here we are on a Monday. Until the training camp gets rolling, Broncos for breakfast, that Monday show, they're taking a break from Mondays. You'll still get the morning show with Nick and Scott Tuesdays and Thursdays, Kim Wednesdays, Beckoning the Broncos, of course, and then Tom Hall and Legends Mile High on Fridays. Meanwhile, as we sign off tonight, normally you'd be looking forward to seeing us again Wednesday night, but no longer are we going to be doing Wednesday nights. So tomorrow night you get Building the Broncos, as is the usual, and then sliding into the Wednesday night, Mile High Insiders. Then Zach and I return Thursday night, Friday night, Death Valley Deep Divers, rinse, repeat. We don't have a Saturday night show currently. We'll figure out what we're going to do with Saturday nights because, Zach, I've always taken pride in us having a podcast 7 nights a week. But just to make sure for those of you might have missed the announcement last week, Zach and I no longer going to be streaming Wednesday nights. Sunday, Monday, Thursday, those 3 days of the week when the season rolls around, that there will be games to break down.
Yeah, it's a new format that we're excited about because we have other information coming soon. We have other things in the hopper right now. We can't wait to reveal to you guys, but all in due time. That is going to do it for tonight. Our show tonight. In the meantime, until we see you guys next, which is Thursday, same time, same place, 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. Follow us on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You can follow Chad on Twitter at Chad and Jensen. You can follow myself at Kelberman NFL. Be sure to follow Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch, you know what it is, where it is, huddleuppod.com. Get your merch on as soon as your heart is content to do so. And also go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod, like that page and follow that page. Guys, if you haven't, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, as you see ticking below you, please do these 3 things. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans, just like you.
And as you know, guys, we revamped the merch store, and we appreciate all of you who have been crushing it for us on the merch store since we revamped it and since we started it. I mean, the merch store exists only because of your popular demand. It was for 6 months, Zach. There's like, we need merch, and we rolled it out. It's been almost 2 years ago now. Well, it's been 2 years, but now we have revamped the merch store with additional products, so many, and more designs that are coming. But guys, so many different products, from t-shirts to mugs to stuff for dogs to teddy bears, for different things for kids, men, women, kids, teenagers, little something for everybody. So check out the merch store. Always easy to remember. huddleuppod.com. Get your swag on. And then a shout out to these great supporters on Facebook. Here's how you finish tonight, really trying to help us close the gap to reach goal tomorrow night, guys. Come through in the clutch, hopefully, for the morning show. Come through in the clutch, hopefully, for building the Broncos, because that's the last day to try and reach goal. Shout out to these great supporters who tried to do their part tonight. Tim Hoffman at the top, throwing down. Phil McLaughlin, GLP, Chris Hernandez, veteran, shout out. Travis, Big T, Travis Weber, and Andrew Baker. And then a shout out to our supporters and super chat superstars, that is, on YouTube. None other than The Duchess, Michaela Parker, Jeff Noyes, Sam Bam, D-Dub, that's Dale across the Pacific in Hawaii, in paradise. Outdoors Geek, a newer name. Shade Tree Mech, a newer name. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
I'm going through my mentions, and Seahawks fans, y'all are so freaking salty over Russell Wilson. That's okay, though. We'll see you guys next time. Take care, and as always, guys, go Broncos.